ladies and gentlemen. Today we are doing our Lesson 4 study guide. It is on rounding and comparing decimals. So number 1 says round to the nearest hundredth. So our hundredth place value is 2 numbers after our decimal point. So I'm going to underline that hundredth place value. Look to the right. If it's 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. So it is 5 or more, so that's going to make this number 8 and 32 hundredths. B, I'm going to underline my number in the hundredths place value. Look to the right, it's 5 or more, so that's going to make this number 8 and 33 hundredths. C, underline my number in the hundredths place value. Look to the right. It is not 5 or more, so I'm going to make that number disappear. This is going to be 8 and 32 hundredths. So remember, it's going to stay the same. D, underline my number in the hundredths place value. Look to the right. It is not 5 or more, so that means this is going to stay a 0. 8 and 30, or I could just keep it in the tenths place value, but because it says round to the nearest hundredths, I'm going to keep it as 30 hundredths. Last but not least, underline my number in the hundredths, look to the right. It is 4 or less, let it rest. So that makes it 8 and 31 hundredths. Number 2 says, which of the weights from question number 1 round to 8 and 32 hundredths? Circle all that apply. So I have 8 and 32 hundredths here, 8 and 32 hundredths here, and those are my only 2. Number 3 says write less than, greater than, or equal to complete the comparisons. So I have a decimal here, and I have a fraction here. But have no fear, we can make that fraction be a decimal. So I'm going to make this be 18, and this says 56 over 100. So remember in class we said we can just make that 56 hundredths. But we have a problem again. We have to make this look like this. But in class we said we can put a 0 at the end, so now that says 560 thousandths. So we're going to put these one on top of the other so we can compare 546 thousandths. Starting on the left, our tens place value, our ones place value, our tenths, and the first time they are different is right here in our hundredths place value. So I'm seeing that a 4 is smaller than a 6. This one is bigger. Sometimes it's helpful just to write it in words so that when we're looking up here, we can say 18 and 546 thousandths is less than our 18 and 560 thousandths. Because sometimes this could look bigger to us than something like this. So when we write it in words on the side, it just makes more sense in our brains. All right, B, we have 6 and 3 tenths, and we're trying to figure out if it's less than, greater than, or equal to 6 and 321 thousandths. So it's kind of like this first one. We have to take our 6 and 3 tenths and make it look like this. So I'm going to rewrite it, 6 and 3 tenths. But I have to have it over here like in the thousandths place value. So this makes it 30 hundredths. This makes it 300 thousandths. So 300 compared to 321. So that's pretty easy. We know that 300 is less than 321. All right, C, 70 and 131 thousandths compared to 70 and 131 thousandths. If this is hard for you to look at, we can rewrite it and say 131 thousandths. We know that it's thousandths because our denominator tells us so. So look, they are the same numbers, and we go one place value at a time when we're comparing. If it's better for your brain, you can put them one on top of the other like we did up here. We can rewrite that. Our numbers, one on top of the other, and we see that they are equal to each other. Okay, and our last one, 41 and 275 thousandths compared to 41 and 257 thousandths. I'm just going to rewrite this one over here. 41 and 257 thousandths. Starting over here in our tens place value, they're the same. Our ones place value, they are the same. Our tenths, they are the same. The first place they're different is in our hundredths. And I see that the 7 is bigger. Our 5 is smaller. So this number, 41 and 275 thousandths, is greater than 41 and 257 thousandths. Number 4, write each decimal in the column that shows the correct rounded number. So down here on the bottom, we have to round these numbers to the nearest tenth, just like it shows in these columns. So I'm just going to do these one at a time and place them in the correct column where they should appear. So I'm going to underline my number in the tenth spot, look to the right. So 6 and 45 hundredths. So is this number 5 or more? Yes. So this becomes 6 and 5 tenths. So this number is going right here. 6 and 45 hundredths. So I'm going to look to the right. That's not 5 or more right there. So this is going to be 6 and 6 tenths. So I'm placing this number over here. Underline my number in the tenth spot. Look to the right. Is this a 5 or more? Nope. So this is going to be 6 and 4 tenths. So this whole number gets moved over here. Underline my number in the tenths. Look to the right. That's not 5 or more, so this is going to be rounded to 6 and 5 tenths. So this whole number gets put in here. Underline the number in the tenths. Look to the right. Is it 5 or more? Yep. So this gets rounded to 6.4. So this whole number gets put over here. Underline the number in the tenths. Look to the right. Is it 5 or more? Yes. So 6.6. This whole number gets put over here. Okay. So true or false? We've got two sets of numbers here that we're looking at. I'm going to go ahead and get started. A says rounded to the nearest tenth, the numbers are equal. So let's go ahead and round those numbers to the tenth. We have 41 and 671 thousandths rounded to the tenth. So look to the right. This gets rounded to 41 and 7 tenths. Then we have 41 and 728 thousandths rounded. This is not 5 or more, so this is going to be 41 and 7 tenths. So is that true? Rounded to the nearest tenth, the numbers are equal? Yes, that's true. B, 41 and 671 is closer to 41 and 67 hundredths than it is to 41 and 68 hundredths. So the way I like to think about this is I'm going to add a 0 to the end of both of these because I'm going to think about what it's saying right here. And if I'm adding a 0 down here, this number right here, this 1, is telling me that if I'm thinking of this as 70 compared to 80, the number 71 is closer to 70 than it would be 80. Think about it. If we're counting from 70 to 80, 71 is only one number away from 70. So it's going to be closer to 70. Now if we had the number 75, that's smack dab in the middle, so we would have to round it up to 80. Remember, 5 or more raise the score, and we're only at a 1. So it's closer to this one. So that is true. C, 41 and 728 thousandths is closer to 41 and 72 hundredths than 41 and 73 hundredths. Well, let's think of the same logic that we just used for B. Let's add that 0 to the end of both of these. We're going to think about this as 20 compared to 30, and we're looking at 28, looking at that 8 there, and I'm counting from 20 to 30, and I have 28, and this is 5 or more. I'm counting to 20 and I'm going to 30 and I'm at 28. I'm already over that middle hump from 25. I am closer to 30. So is that closer to 20 than I am 30? No, that is false because I'm at 28. So I'm really only 2 numbers away to 30. D says 41 and 671 thousandths rounded to the nearest hundredth is smaller than 41 and 728 thousandths. I'm going to read that one again. 41 and 671 thousandths rounded to the nearest hundredth is smaller than 41 and 728 thousandths. All right, so let's round this one. 41 and 671 thousandths rounded to the nearest hundredth. So I'm underlining my number in the hundredths place value, looking to the right. 41 and 67. Is it smaller than 41 That is true. Okay, number 6. Order from greatest to least. So we have all these numbers right here, and we played this activity in class, so I hope you think about that as you're ordering this. And we really have to go from left to right. So as I'm thinking about this, all of them have whole numbers of 11. So I sort of like to put these in order from least to greatest, one on top of each other. And remember in class we put zeros at the end because all of our numbers really had hundredths, but these all have numbers into the thousands, so I might put a 0 at the end of each of them. This one I have to put 2 zeros. And you could put them over here on the side, like 11 and 600 thousandths, 11 and 706 thousandths, 11 and 670 thousandths, 11 and 70 thousandths, and then 11 and 76 thousandths. So the smallest one I'm seeing is going to be, oh, I'm sorry, it's the greatest to least. Wow, you really have to make sure you're paying attention to the directions. So our largest one I'm seeing is 706 thousandths. So we're going to put that one down here first. And then I'm seeing 760, so make sure we write it down correctly too, because there isn't a 0 there. 670, not 760. And then I see 11.6, this one. And then we've got 76 is greater than 70. And then last but not least, we have this one. So there are little tips and tricks that help you, and making sure they all have the same amount of place values is definitely a helpful trick that we can do. And all I did was just add a 0 to some of them to make sure they all had numbers in the thousandths place value, because it's really hard to pay attention to see, oh, this number only has a number in the tenths, but this one has a number in the thousandths. How do I know which one is bigger? So adding those zeros at the end to the place values will definitely help you out. Bye guys, hope this helped.